Thank you everybody for joining. We put this together kind of last minute because we saw that there were a lot of questions across different, across different parts of the pipeline. Some people that were interested in applying to PPP, whereas we had others that had already started to apply or were declined, etc. So we just wanted to address first, go over a little bit of the process, go over some of the overarching themes that we've been seeing through the, through the PPP's process. And then, yeah, just deep dive right into the questions. So we'll go ahead and get started. And my apologies for some, this is going to be a little basic, but, we'll make this really short. First things first is, what is PPP, right? You'd be surprised, but we are still getting this question. Basically, it's an SBA backed loan, okay? So what this means is that the Small Business Administration is helping to support small businesses and all size businesses really with the PPP stimulus. And this is in a direct response to the pandemic and the situation, the economic crisis that the pandemic caused and the strain that it caused on businesses. So primarily, the reason this came up was to be a paycheck protection program, right? And it was helping you keep your employees and pay for their salaries. And it's really, over the last new rounds of PPP has kind of evolved before that. Now, before I kind of get started and go into this, I did want to introduce Phil Goldfeder. He is our partner over at CRB, that's Cross River Bank. And he is really just the guru of all things PPP. That is his official PPP title for us. And then we have Jack Adler, and Jack Adler is managing director and head of underwriting for PPP. So you couldn't have asked for two better people to be able to be in here kind of helping man through some of these questions and get you as informed as you can through this somewhat complex, or rigorous government project. So they're going to be interjecting whenever they need to. They're going to be keeping me honest if I say something that isn't entirely accurate. And they're also going to be, just answering all your questions as they come up. So let's take a step back because I think that this is really important. It's how does PPP work, right? So we all know that it was all over the news. The government gave $285 billion. They approved this stimulus package. So in a nutshell, what happens at this point is that that money is given to the U.S. Small Business Administration, what you're seeing in blue, right? They in turn go out and distribute it among the banking institutions. And it's not an allocation. It's not that one bank gets more money than the other. It's just all of the requests as they come in this highly automated process. It's going to be first come, first serve. And all of these banking institutions are basically feeding in these requests to the U.S. Small Business Administration. And then you have companies like Idea Financial, which are these lending partners that you're seeing in the far right of the screen that are there to support Cross River and getting the word out, doing communications like this and really helping, all of the people as they go through this process. We know that it can be complicated. We know that sometimes you feel like you send this application to this big black box that is, the U.S. Small Business Administration. And we're here to kind of help you navigate that, let Cross River Bank do what Cross River Bank does best, which is process these loans in ways that, frankly, no other bank can. I'm just going to say it. So that's where we come in. That is where Cross River Bank comes in, and that is where the SBA comes in. So that's kind of the first misconception. We've definitely gotten a lot of emails saying, well, I just want to apply to the SBA directly. Well, through Cross River Bank, you absolutely are. Phil, I think you want to say something here.
Yeah, I was going to say is that, it is still, while the banks are implementing the program, it's a government run program. And so we're obviously working hand in hand with the SBA, but also recognize that, as a community bank, we've created an automated system that really is the goal is to maximize the assistance we can to as many borrowers as possible. It's not, look, and I don't think I need to say this, but this was a program that was literally created just a few weeks ago. Today, we're just in week number 4 of a brand new program with new underwriting principles, with new guidelines, with new rules. And and you're going to hear soon, we're proud to be able to already assist many, many borrowers. And so, sometimes it's not an issue that, the bank doesn't always have the answer. It's sometimes the answer or the guideline hasn't actually been written yet by the SBA or by Treasury. And so we're working through these problems as quickly as we possibly can to address some of the questions.
Got it. Yeah, that's actually a great call out. I mean, and we've been on calls before together, Phil, where, it'll be week 2 and it'll suddenly be, we're doing some changes in our underwriting because the SBA brought out some new rules, right? So, this program is still, for better or for worse, because a lot of those changes are positive, but it is still fluid and things go changing even as the program has officially launched. So that's really important to understand. And as Phil was just mentioning, I want to highlight the summary of all the PPP. That's another, fact checking here right now. I know that the first round of PPP, I want to say it went out in 14 days. So I know that there's also this like panicked frenzy, you know what I mean, to try to get your application in as soon as humanly possible. And look, to be perfectly respecting, the need that everybody has to get this money through the door as quickly as they can. But here's where we are as of February 7th. So, it's about 10 days old, but we're $100 billion had already been lent out, right? And it is a $285 billion plan. So it's fair to say, that this is not going to be the 14-day frenzy. It's already proven not to be the 14-day frenzy. And that's for a variety of reasons. And that's really important to establish as well. The first time that PPP came out, everybody just kind of rushed to the door, and the SBA, because, COVID was what it was at the time, it almost felt like the perception was like they just, lent money, like everybody was approved. There was no checks and balances. We know that there were some issues with that. We know that there were some agencies and some contacts that maybe didn't need to get the money. And that's why all of these checks and balances have been put in place. So you're seeing a slowdown for sure. People are not being automatically approved by the SBA the way they used to. And that is a good thing, especially if you're a small or medium-sized business. You want that to happen because that is actually being put in place to ensure that you get access to this money and that it isn't just being taken by somebody that can process, has a lot of knowledge in this field and can process this quicker. All right.
Yeah, let me just add. And so right now, the program is currently scheduled to run through, I apologize, my phone doesn't stop ringing. The program is currently scheduled to run through March 31st. What we're seeing to this point is about $25 to $30 billion a week being distributed, which at this point seems like it will definitely make it to the end. Obviously, no guarantees, but it seems like we'll make it to the end. If I were a betting man, I would say that the program likely were to get extended. But if that were the case, the government would probably put more money into the program as well. And so I think people are trying to be a bit more thoughtful. And from the bank's perspective, we appreciate that, right? Like it's when people are being more thoughtful, and we're going to talk about the documents required, and they're careful about what documents, and they're making sure that they're eligible and they understand what they should be doing. It makes the entire process easy for everyone. And so we're seeing consistently those numbers hold true, and we're hopeful that the program will continue going for obviously at least another 40 days, but hopefully a bit more.
Right. Great. So now I lost my footing here. Where's my mouse?
Sorry.
No. I'm actually just looking for my mouse here. Give me a sec. Where can I hit next? Come in here.
And so if I remember correctly, and we'll ad lib for a second, right? If I remember correctly, so in terms of, right, so number one, we've partnered with Idea Financial because of their reputation, their relationships. Our goal is to help as many small businesses across the country as possible. Idea has been kind of on the front lines of helping small businesses for a long time, right? Not, long before PPP, Idea Financial was on the front lines. So we partnered with Idea to try and help and serve as many small businesses as possible. To date, I think the next slide, Cross River. So this is funny. This is actually a week old. There's a newer one that just came out to the 14th. Cross River has actually made about 65,000 loans to date. That is the third most in the country. And so I want you to feel comfortable that when you're coming to Idea and you're working with Cross River Bank, we literally are getting more loans approved than any other financial institution in the entire country. And so we're providing you hopefully the best possible chance to get your loan approved in a safe and efficient way. And that's the goal. And so to date, we've actually already loaned $1.5 billion in round two. That is following in round one when we loaned about $6.5 billion. And so we've got a pretty good track record. Obviously, no system is perfect, and we are working literally nonstop, 24 hours a day to figure out what the problems are, to understand where the snags are happening. But I want to just say this again, and Jack will yell at me if I don't address this, right? This is an automated system. I want you to recognize that, like, we utilize an automated system. That's how we're able, as a small community bank, that's how we're able to maximize the amount of borrowers. And so in an automated system, I'll give you a good example, right? We ask people to use a desktop computer to upload their documents. And in our first 2 weeks, we looked at the analytics, and we saw almost 50% of the applications that were coming through, people were using their cell phones. And those same people were upset. How come my loan is not getting approved? My application was perfect. We need you to follow the guidelines on our website. If you go to Idea Financial, the PPP application, you'll see there are helpful tips on the right. They're not just helpful tips. They're essentially, this is what you need to do to get approved. Because if you don't follow them, and I'm seeing the questions, you're gonna hit one of those snags I talked about. We can't read the documents. The license wasn't uploaded clearly. Your bank account numbers don't match the voided check that you sent. I mean, there's literally anywhere of thousands of places that you can hit a snag. And the goal is for you to review those the helpful hints, review the frequently asked questions, and then come to apply. And like I said, we're gonna give you the best chance. Together with Ideal, we're gonna give you the best chance to get your approval as quickly as possible.
And that's it. I think that's really speaking to, one, I can certainly vouch for CRB working. I write them at all type of indecent times, and they get back to me quickly enough. I know that I know that we have a backlog of emails. I know that we have a backlog of messages, and I know that there's a ton of questions. And look, we understand that, applying and really matching all the numbers and making sure that everything looks the way it needs to, if this isn't your business, right? You're not in the business of that. But that's why this is going to be really important. It's because, I can't highlight enough that the automation, and I've heard Phil say this in other meetings, the automation basically democratizes this, right? And it's what's really going to help you as a small business, as a restaurant, as a farmer, as all of these smaller companies that are the ones that are being the most effective. It's really what's going to give you the most fair shot at being able to get the money that you need for your business during these hard times.
That's very well said. The one thing I would just add, and you could see that, you look at our average loan size. Our average loan size is $23,000 per loan, which means, you took the words literally out of my mouth. I mean, the idea here is for those small businesses that don't have big banking relationships or don't have, banker friends or connections. We're really trying to create a process where everybody has the same opportunity to get through the process, get their loan approved, and get the funding they need.
Yep, that's it. So let's go into how applying works. Now I'm going to talk about it in a nutshell, and then I'm going to give you some of those snags, okay? So the first thing you need to do is to apply through Cross River Bank through the Idea Financial link. Now, we'll send that out to you. Everybody on this call should already have access to this link, but of course, in the follow-up email you're going to get after this webinar, you're going to be able to see this recording in case there was any questions that we kind of breezed through and you want to hear it again. You're going to get an email with all of the questions that have been asked, as well as just an answer right next to it, so you can kind of keep track of that. And then you're also going to get the link for you to apply, or for you to actually look up your application and finish your application. So before you apply, review those FAQs and get familiar with the needed documents. We've already put onto our website, and again, that's all in the same link we're going to send you. We've put in the document guidelines. I cannot tell you how beneficial that has been. You're going to be able to see by entity type an exact example of everything, what it looks like, some of the gotchas, some of the watch outs, you know what I mean? Because that is what is going to, the better you prepare your file before you submit it, the better chance you have of having it go through a process as quickly and as automated as possible. And that's really what you want to have done. So once you submit that in, then that's where Cross River comes in. That's where, Jack's team comes in, and they start to process the loan. If everything goes through and, we don't have any snags because the license, the driver's license is readable and the bank statement is actually a format we can use, you're going to go into a quick automatic review, quick-ish, right? If not, you go into a manual review. The manual review is where there's a lot of the snags. It's where we have, Phil's team and Jack's team are, adding new underwriters every week to be able to manage the workload and get through these manual reviews. But as you can imagine, a computer, if you put all of the information in the right way, a computer is going to get to it faster than a backlog of a physical human having to flip through your documents and figure out what it is that's wrong, and then have to send you an email and ask you to do that. Now, in either one of those circumstances where the Cross River is processing the loan, we might need more documents from you. So it's another big thing is make sure that you're checking your junk mail. Make sure that you're checking your spam just in case things are going in there. You may have an underwriter writing you saying, I need another copy of your check, or I need a bank statement, or I need a P&L. And, the faster you can get that to us, obviously, the faster we can process your loan. Now, from there, and this is important because this is what changed versus, some of the previous SBA funding rounds, is that the SBA then goes through its own series of checks, right? Rather than doing those approvals, check, out money, they're going through some fraud checks, some previous loan checks, and some other auditing procedures. I'm going to speak more about that in a little bit because there's a specific issue happening with the loan numbers that I want to address, but I'll talk about that in a minute. And then from there, the SBA is going to decision that loan, right? They can either accept the loan or they can reject the loan. Now, a lot of these rejections that come in are not coming in because you're not eligible. They're not coming in because you do not qualify for PPP. They're being rejected because something isn't accurate in the file or something's going on in the file that makes the SBA, another highly automated process, have to kick it back and say that we can't process this loan. All right. So at that point, if you are rejected, we do encourage you to apply again. Okay. We encourage, and in fact, a lot of the name of the game is kind of submitting that second application in. And we're seeing really, really positive turnout in those people that have been originally declined, or what you see as aged, right? So it's basically saying that the SBA or somebody in CRB hasn't been able to get to your application on time, and they're just encouraging you to apply again. When that has happened, we're seeing that work really well. We're seeing people go through the process faster. Or if you get accepted, then you go on to the next steps. Now, if accepted, your loan is going to be managed through Cross River Bank. Again, you couldn't be in better hands. They have everything they need to be able to manage this loan, manage the loan forgiveness process, and all that entails. The other thing that you're gonna, I want to call out, and then I'll just jump straight into this, is the timings of all of these things. So starting again in the beginning of the process, I want to talk about, it just takes a few minutes for you to apply once you have all of your documentation. So we got a lot of questions saying, am I eligible? I have this situation. Am I eligible? Go take a look at the document guidelines, gather your documents, take the 7 minutes to apply. There is no penalty for being declined. Okay, so that is going to be my blanket recommendation for anybody who is wondering if they're eligible. Okay, and then I'll definitely highlight Phil's big gotcha. You need to apply on Chrome and on a computer. Okay, and you need to do that after reviewing the document guidelines and the FAQs. I'm not kidding. 80% of the questions that we get in, that are, delaying everybody else's response, are questions that are verbatim asked and answered in the FAQ. And we update our FAQs pretty much every 24 hours. So if we did get a great question from somebody yesterday that, hadn't been asked in the past, we add it in there on the website as a resource so that you start to see more and more, you start to see more answers as you need them. Other thing here, it's the company structure, documents, loan number accuracy. Phil, you can speak to this more than me, but we're seeing a very large portion of the issues, that the snags that are happening, really around those things. And some of them, like company structure, are inevitable. There's going to be cases where, you know, the system thinks that if you're this type of company, you should have A, B, C document, and you may not. And that doesn't mean you're not going to be approved. That just means that unfortunately, yes, it's going to be manual, right?
So let me address that, and I thank you. There is obviously, if you don't get through the automatic system, we're not discounting you, and we're not telling you that we're not going to be able to help you. It's just going to require more time. As was mentioned, you can get through the automated system if your documents are good and your application is good and everything sort of meets the criteria. You can get through the application in, I don't know, 10, 12 minutes, and it goes to the SBA for approval within a day or so, and then it could take the SBA another maybe 3 to 5 days to approve. If you don't get through the automated system, right, and that's where Jack comes in, and Jack and his team, and I think his team is rather large at this point, that's where his team has to actually take a look at it, because there is some sort of anomaly in your application that requires a human to take a look at it. Now, again, given the time frame of the program, we didn't know what to expect in terms of the underwriting. We didn't know what the guidelines were going to be. And so Jack had X amount of people on his team, and all of a sudden we recognized with the new revenue reduction rules and some of the other things that the SBA has implemented, it required additional people in the manual underwriting team. We have significantly expanded the team. Significantly. I can't say that emphatically enough. And so we're still working through, and some people will say, well, we've been in manual review for 5 days, 6 days, 8 days. We're still working through some of the backlog, but I'm optimistic that we'll be fully caught up on the backlog sometime early next week. Once that happens, we hope to be in, and again, I say we're recording this, so I have to be careful, but like we hope to be caught up and be working in real time, which means if it goes into manual review, it'll only be another extra day or two. Versus now, it's probably been closer to 10 or 11 days. And we're still working through that right now. And so we're really working to optimize the system. At any given loan program, this could take 6 months to hit your stride. I'm pretty confident that within 4, we've gotten to a really good place, and we're only going to get better.
That's awesome. Yeah, and here's how you can help for everybody kind of listening in. Documents, loan number accuracy, right? Let's not use the human power on things that can be avoidable, like having, the wrong loan number, or having the wrong, the document hard to read. Like let's let the underwriters do the work that really requires human supervision, and let's try to submit this in a way that, is as automated as possible. It's going to save you time, it's going to save us time, and we're going to be able to help you better. So let's just skip to that. Let's just jump over to the SBA decision. So let's say you got accepted your loan. Now, it is not taking this long historically, but I want to give this big watch out. Funding can take up to 20 days, right? So if you were approved and you got your DocuSign, so that's what happens. You do get a DocuSign that you have to accept the terms. Once that happens, you have 20 days between that and when you actually get the funds. Now, there's 2 things that are I need to highlight there. One, we've had quite a bit of issues, and Phil, kind of jump in when you need to, but we've had quite a bit of issues where the bank information where you're supposed to be receiving the funds has some sort of inaccuracy to it. The bank, and that's a big deal, because now you've been accepted. We're trying to get you your money, and we actually need some further steps to be able to get you your money. And then the second one, to just the patience portion of it, of course, is, once you've been approved, once you've signed your DocuSign, if in 48 hours you haven't gotten, the money yet, know that it can take a little bit longer. Again, we're the 3rd fastest processor, and, we're processing loans for a lot of small businesses. So SBA works very democratically. They're not giving any type of preferential treatment. It is literally first come, first serve, and they're really dispersing that in that order. So
let me, to that exact point, and let me stress, like we've, when we recognize sort of there's a larger than a one-off, right? And we find, when I say one-off, it's, when you're doing our kind of scale, it's like 20 offs, right? Where like you find 20 applications that kind of fit into a similar criteria. But there's been now 3 instances where we found something that is larger, and you pointed it out, as sort of, if for some reason your banking information doesn't match. The voided check has a different account number than the bank statement. And that's different than the number you've entered. Or we review the documents and we look, and sometimes the documents are questionable, whether it was the scans, whether, when you're looking at a blank check, every bank is different. And so you have to validate that it's a real bank account. And we have a tremendous amount of systems in place to weed out fraud and abuse. And so we've actually built a manual team. And again, you know that we love to automate, but we've built a manual team just to deal with some of those ACH fails, issues with banking, routing numbers. The worst thing that could happen is that the money gets sent to the wrong person or to the wrong bank account. Sometimes banks are forgiving about it, and I'll give you an example. I had literally one this morning who the last number of the account was wrong, and when it got to the bank, again, the bank on the ground had a good relationship with their customer, and so they were able to adjust it, right? And so all's well that ends well. Most times, what the bank will do is send the money back to us, right? And all of a sudden now you're in this sort of loop where you're trying to get in touch with us. We have hundreds, if not thousands, of people who are also, sort of dealing with various issues, and we're trying to solve it. And so it goes back to the advice that we gave in the beginning, is that please fill out your application careful. Now, I can tell you from my own personal, the way I do it, right, is like, oh, let me go through the application, and as I need things, I'll go pull them up, right? Oh, I need this, let me go find it, and I'll leave it, and I'll come back. I encourage you to look at what you need, put it all together in one place, and then start your application. It's the safest, easiest way to do it. And then when you're entering the information, particularly your banking information, please triple check before you submit, because everything could be great, but if it gets to the funding phase and we're not able to fund you and your funds bounce back, and sometimes, by the way, banks are not as good about sending it right back to us, right? Sometimes they hold it for a bit and it takes time. I don't want to put you in limbo. The goal here is to get you this funding as quickly and safely as possible.
Thank you. That's perfect. I think we all needed to hear that. All right, let's move forward. Here we go. All right. I don't want to spend too much time on this because I know that it's just a few people that this is going to be relevant for, but these are the different stages that you can basically be in, right? You're either in a complete your application, right? And that means that you haven't finished, right? If you're getting these emails asking you to complete your application, it means that we have not started to process it yet. There's still something going on here. The 36-hour review, that is that automated review. The machines are doing their thing. We'll let you know soon. The 7-day manual review is exactly what Bill was just talking about. You either ended up here because you have a complex application that requires a human touch on it, or because there was something in the application that made it hard for the automatic review to happen. If Bill is talking about now that, and Jack, feel free to chime in whenever, but it seems like we're going to be able to have a team of underwriters that'll be able to get to this within the 7 days, like we're kind of putting here. But if you've been in this status for a while, we actually, and you go to the document guidelines and and you see it, right? You see, no, yeah, my license is really hard to read, or my bank statement, I just kind of copied and pasted onto a Word document. No machine is going to pick this up. If you see that, we encourage you to cancel your application using the email that you used to apply. That's important. Okay, just send an email to us asking us to cancel your application. And by us, I mean the Cross River support team. Again, something I'll include in the email at the end of this, and just reapply again, right? If that's happening, go ahead and reapply again, because 9 times out of 10, you will end up in that 36-hour automatic review instead of that 7-day manual review, if that's the type of issues that you have. Now, if you've been approved by the SBA, like we said, there's a couple of steps after that. So you just need to kind of wait to hear from us regarding the DocuSign and whatnot. Awaiting applicant response, okay? Right now, I just wanted to highlight that we have 25 people in this status, okay? So that means that 25 people, we're actually waiting to hear from them about, in order for us to be able to process their loan. So make sure to check your junk, make sure to check your spam, and just keep up to date with your email. Now, declined, we've already talked about this, I'll highlight it again. If you've been declined, especially at this stage, you're more than likely not declined because you're not eligible. You're declined because, something happened in the application that didn't let us be able to submit it and get it approved for you. Check your document guidelines. Here's where checking the FAQs is crucial, because we do speak a lot about who is eligible, what are the things that you need, what are the requirements. And I know that we have a lot of questions in that. So go ahead and submit it in, and then submit it to the SBA. As I mentioned, is that part where the SBA is really, working on your loan. This one is particularly important because this is where we're getting one particular snag I want to address. And I'll probably jump to that right now. People are having a very hard time finding their SBA loan number. And I am referring to the SBA loan number from their original PPP loan. So if you have received PPP in the past and you're asking for another round of PPP funding, you can absolutely do that. There's some checks and balances that the SBA put in place, but we need you to find the correct SBA loan number. And every bank has kind of had a different way, and there's actually quite a few numbers that are showing up in these forms. So we've had all sorts of instances where people are putting in one number or another, being sure that it's the SBA loan number when in fact it's not. And that causes it to go into a big black hole, like cards on the table. So what we're encouraging people to do, unless you have a form that is this black and white that literally says, and this is an example from Cross Rivers, not to toot their horn, but this is an example from the Cross River loan application from the last round. So unless it's something like this, where it literally says SBA loan number and then a number next to it, we encourage you to actually call the bank that gave you the original loan and get that number. Like, that is the best way to do it. We've had several clients that have given us a number. We've said, nope, that's wrong. Given us another number. Nope, that's wrong. And then when they've called their bank, they've gotten yet a third number, and that's been the right one. So I can't emphasize this enough, because this is one of the big reasons why people are going into big black holes in the PPP process. And then, this is this is the application form, what you're seeing on the screen here. For those of you that have started your application, you can actually find your application on this site with either your business EIN, your social security, and your date of birth. So you'll be able to pick up where you left off if you haven't already started, or you'll be able to kind of check the status of your loan within that page. Any questions? Because we've started our Q&A session. So we've officially started. I think at this point, if you are on Zoom, go ahead and look to where it says Q&A. We have about 27 questions that have already been answered. At this point, if you have any questions, feel free to start writing them in. And Phil, I think, is gonna maybe answer some of these live.
I think there was some of them I was about to start typing an answer, and I was like, it just felt a little easier probably to answer it. So if you have all your documentation that is required, but still turned down for the loan, right there, I don't want to, it'd be hard without looking at your particular application to understand why you didn't get through. But if you don't provide, and I can't say this enough, if you don't provide the documents you ask for, and some people send a letter, right? And I'll give you an example, right? When we ask for a blank check, we need a blank check because the system automatically reads the check and clarifies and checks your numbers. If for whatever reason you don't have a blank check, a lot of people were sending us a letter from their bank. Like, in absence of a check, here's a letter from my bank with my account number. That's great, but the automated system is looking for a check. And so when it sees that letter, it's gonna kick you out, right? It's not gonna let it go through. And so I'm not saying that you are ineligible, quite the opposite. It's going to require a manual review. And so more times than not, if it's an underwriting question, it goes to Jack's team. If it's a funding issue, it goes to a different team. But all of a sudden people are having to wait a bit longer and they're questioning. And so you have to kind of follow the instructions. And if you can't, you are going to be an edge case. And I will say this, and I want to be very clear, because for Idea Financial and Cross River, our goal is for you to be funded. I'd like to do it. Idea would like to do it. We want to make sure that our system can work for you. But if we can't, we want to be as honest and as open as possible, right? And so that's why we try to really make the decisioning as black and white as possible, right? If we can get you through, we're going to get you through. If we can't, we want you to know that as soon as possible so you can look at your alternative options. And so, it's important that you really go back, and when you don't get approved, to look back, okay, what did I submit? What did they ask for? Did it match up? And if it did, again, you can always call our customer service. We're getting caught up on that front as well. And the goal here is for us to be able to help as many people as possible. Okay. I got one. Again, someone had asked about DocuSigns. Again, there could be any one of a number of reasons why you're held up. You can email PPP support. If you want to post your email address, I'm happy to try and take a look and troubleshoot if possible. Okay, so I want to explain, this is something that often gets lost. And part of the reason why there are few of the rules are built into the second round of the program. The purpose of the program is to retain employees, right? The goal here is for you to be able to continue your business, to ensure that it continues to stay open and that you can keep your employees on payroll. Somebody who has already fired all of his employees or somebody who has since gone out of business, you are not going to be eligible for this loan, right? The idea is that if you are still in business, and so how do you, if someone who has laid off their employees, it doesn't mean you're not eligible for anything, but you can't claim eligibility for employees that no longer work for you. So some people have made the argument, well, they did work for me for a long time and I had to let them go. This loan is for the future, looking forward, from now forward. And so if your employees are no longer working for you, then you're not going to be eligible to claim them. Another question that we get is 1099 employees. If you pay your employees via 1099, you cannot claim them as yours. A 1099, a sole proprietor, can claim their own PPP loan, but they cannot be claimed by another business. Obviously, we don't want double claiming. So someone who is a 1099 employee has to claim, fill out an application on their own and couldn't be claimed by another business. Jack, I see there's a question about a C Corp, the payroll, if you want to sort of take that one. You've been very quiet, Jack.
I mean, I have 32 questions answered in the chat, so I've been busy, Phil, all right?
And Jack, I want to hear,
C-Corp.
Jack gave us a really great speech about the automation, and I think we have 4 minutes left, but I'd like you to give us that 30-second summary because I think it was really important. Your message was
Yeah, I think Phil already, touched on it, and it's really, important to keep in mind that this is an automated system, and, just because we were not able to approve your loan doesn't mean you're ineligible. It doesn't mean that we're not able to manually push your loan through. It just means that we were not able to automatically approve your loan. And that could be for a host of reasons. Usually it has to do with, some sort of mistype in the application, like Phil said, typing in the wrong number by mistake, or if the documents that you upload are blurry or unable to be read by our system, that will cause it to not be able to be approved automatically. So there's a host of different reasons that it could be leading to that application getting stuck in our system. And we really don't know what that is until we have a human pick up that file, look through it, and try to investigate why it got stuck. So like Phil mentioned before, we have a really large underwriting team right now. We keep bringing on new. I hired 10 more underwriters this week, and they've been trained this week, and they're going to be up and running next week. So, we're plowing through hundreds of files a day on our manual underwriting, in addition to the thousands of files a day that we're doing automatically. To answer the question in the chat about a payroll register for a C Corp, in general, in addition to tax documents being acceptable proof of payroll, a recognized third-party payroll processing report would be eligible. So if you're sending us your internal payroll register, that's not going to be good enough. But if you have a third party like ADP or Gusto or TriNet or Paychex or any of those third-party payroll companies, you can give us the payroll report from that company as a proof of payroll. However, keep in mind, that is not our standard documentation that we ask for. So that's an exactly perfect example of an application that's eligible and the documentation provided is eligible. However, our system is not going to be able to automatically approve you because our system is not going to be able to read that payroll register. Our system is built to read tax documents. So if you don't give us tax documents, you're going to have to be in the manual review. So we're going to get to your file eventually, and we're going to be able to decision it manually. It just takes much longer than the automated system.
And that's okay. And if you have a case like that, that's perfectly fine for you to be a manual review. What we're trying to do is avoid a lot of people that otherwise don't need to be in manual review to end up in there and kind of bogging down the whole thing. Now,
Sure.
we have about 1 more minute. If there's anything specific, I just want to clarify, it is 20 calendar days, not business days. So that's kind of done. Do we want to, and again, there's going to be a couple more, anything that doesn't get answered here, everyone, we're going to still answer them. We're going to get you a Word document, you know, an Excel file with just the question and the answer. But if somebody wants to take one last one or two last ones, I think that's how we could wrap up.
So let me just, if you already received a loan, right? If you received a first round loan, you obviously are eligible for a second round loan. At this point, right, if you already received funding, you can't get a second round 2 loan. And the question is about, you know, surrounding the SBA. There are a lot of, I want to be very clear, what the SBA did implement this round that they did not have last time was a significant amount of checks on their end. And so many applications were in round 1, once Jack pushed the button to submit it to the SBA, it was almost instantly approved, period. The SBA is no longer doing that. And so a review of a loan could take anywhere between 3 and 5 days. And if they put a hold on it, it could take significantly longer. The SBA has only started providing the banks with the information on how to clear some of these holds, right? And so sometimes it's a mismatch. Your business, you know, maybe in your first round, you use your social security number, and your second round, you use an EIN number. You could have you know, the SBA could search if you have outstanding federal debt. There's literally dozens and dozens of reasons. And some of them the banks are able to fix. The SBA has provided us how to fix them. For many of them, they have not. And I can tell you that we have in the system for over 3 weeks, the SBA is sort of sitting on these applications, have not yet provided us any guidance on how to fix them. I wish I could do something about it, and I wish I had an answer. And oftentimes it's very, very frustrating. And I see it through our customer service teams. It's not something that we could fix. This is a government program. We're doing the best we can to implement it as safely and as quickly as possible.
And we're, you know, if I do say so myself, Cross River is doing a great job doing it, right? The stats are showing it, and we're getting more money in the hands of small and medium businesses than anybody else out there. So that's shown by the processing speed at which we're doing things as third fastest processor, coupled with the average size of loan, right? If you aren't the big guy with the big banking relationship, we're definitely your guy. And if not, at least we're being, like Phil says, transparent enough to give you that information and give you those options and welcome you to try it elsewhere. We believe that you're in the right hands. We're here to kind of hold your hand as much as we can through the process. These are some of the things that, you know, we're asking for your help on. And, you know, patience and more questions, go ahead and send them through to us after. So I'm going to end it here. All of your questions are being answered. You'll get, once again, the Excel file with every question asked, including some of the ones that were asked on the back end, as well as all the answers. You're going to get the support email, the support phone number, the application link again. Probably include the document guideline review in there as well as a link to our FAQs. So you should be set up for success at this point. Feel free to let us know if there are any other questions or if you have anything else after that. But if not, we are going to end it here. Phil, Godsent, and then Jack, you're the typing queen and king and royal court of underwriting. So we appreciate your help over there, and thank you for rocking on and all the things that your underwriters are doing.
Thank you. Thank you for your partnership. We couldn't do without you.
Thank you, guys. We'll talk soon. Thank you, everybody.